Hello and welcome! You read the title, so you know that I'm redesigning the Scooby Gang. I've been a lifelong Scooby fan, so their personalities today will be influenced by all the past TV shows and movies. Okay, here's the very basic premise so you have some context. After graduating high school, Mystery Inc. is now a small PI group making their place in Coolsville, Ohio. When they don't have actual clients, they go monster hunting in the hopes that they build trust within the community. Coolsville is mostly a wealthy area, filled with seedy CEOs and shareholders with too much time on their hands. Some would even say, a suspicious amount of time. Okay, on to our first character. With these redesigns, I'll typically be talking about their personality first, and then pivoting to the visual aspects of the character designs. We're doing Velma first. Velma, as you might guess, is a very intelligent character. To me, she's always been very book and theory smart, but not necessarily much else. My Velma has oddly sharp observational skills. She's great at examining people's stories to find inconsistencies and infer logical conclusions to evidence. On the other hand, she's got zero people smarts. She had to learn social rules manually from the ground up, so when she's the one leading the conversation, she's as subtle as a hammer meeting a brick wall. That's why she usually keeps her mouth shut unless she has something to say. Again, this works well when she's observing people. People do talk more when they forget you're there, after all. When Velma does speak, she gets right to the point, even if others think it's a little blunt. Like I mentioned, Velma knows a wide variety of technical knowledge, but doesn't really know how to put it into practice. Good thing she has access to a Freddy. I think she's secretly into researching the occult, but doesn't necessarily want others to know because people tend to think that that's creepy. Velma's definitely a Redditor. Hey man, I don't make up the rules, she just is. She's also a Tumblr and AO3 girly though. I like to think she was... I always forget this line is here and then it hits me like a sledgehammer. I like to think she was in the trenches during the Onceler fandom. Velma tries very hard to be a good detective. She's the type of person who can only see her flaws, so she sometimes wonders if the gang will keep her around if she stops being the smart one. It doesn't help that she feels a little out of touch with the gang at times. While Velma could only afford college because of an academic scholarship, everyone else has parents that are loaded. Yes, even Shaggy. No one names their kid Norval unless they're old money. The way the gang talks about some of their problems makes their issues seem kinda trivial. Nobody else has to worry about whether their job will make enough money to pay rent this month, or about losing their scholarship if their grades slip below a 4.9, and nobody else, as far as she knows, feels out of place in their friend group. Okay, now we're moving on to talking about Velma's design. And y'all might hate me for this choice, it'll be a little controversial. We're shifting Velma's primary color from orange to yellow for the singular reason that I hate traffic cone orange. Plus, orange does tend to clash with pretty much every color out there. Her secondary color is a warm dark brown, and her accent color is a dark red. Fall colors, baby! Because she feels isolated, she hasn't incorporated any of the gang's colors into her design, so you don't see any purple, green, blue, or light browns for her. When I have a few options for clothing design, I usually nail down the body type first, and then essentially make a little paper doll of them. It's the same sketch, but each copy has different clothing put over top. I can also mix and match as needed. Velma feels like a tomboy, so that's why you see so many options with pants. I mean, come on, whose idea was it to put her in a tiny miniskirt, and then keep her in the same exact outfit for 50 stinking years? I know miniskirts are a staple for 60s mod fashion, but Velma's not a skirt girl. She's a pants girly. She definitely prefers function over form. I don't know how to describe it, but I really liked these like jogger jeans type pants. You can see it in the final design. I ended up giving the pants a plaid pattern, though I also tried like a bleach dye design. I can't remember how many versions of that I tried, but I remember one of them being like a thorn type motif. Yes, it's a Hex Girls reference. I like the idea of her having like a slight alt inspiration in her design, so I gave her chains on her belt. I tried a more feminine style of Doc Martens, but I actually ended up really liking combat boots on her. As for the top, I always knew that there was going to be a turtleneck in there somewhere, because, I mean, obviously. The real question was whether or not I wanted to do some layering over it. I tried a short-sleeved button-up shirt, but that looked kind of weird, so I also tried a sweater vest. And then I tried a couple iterations of the sweater vest. And as it turned out, I really liked the vest, but I was a little worried it would make things too busy, so I didn't go with it in the final product. I think a nice Argyle sweater vest would be a good look to layer for like special episodes or something though. I did keep the hair largely the same. It's curly now, but still in a bob. I also kept the glasses largely the same, but now they're just a tad more modern looking. Like other iterations of Scooby-Doo, she's Ashkenazi Jewish and German here. I don't know if people ever wear a Star of David as a hair clip, but that's just what I ended up liking the most. I also tried it as a necklace, a pin, a belt decoration, but those options made the design feel a little too busy. Overall, my initial concept for her fashion was originally inspired by the 80s, kind of like a Bill Gates type vibe, but the end result feels very modern, which I actually really like. I only made like 5 of them, but in reality, she's got like a million pins on her leather satchel. We've got the nerd pins like Reddit and AO3, and identity markers like autistic and lesbian pins, and my personal favorite, the Hex Girls pin. In this universe, the Hex Girls are a black metal band. The design I went with for this one is a lot more legible than most black metal logos, but otherwise it follows the typical format. In my research, I learned that the reason metal logos look like that is because they're designed around a basic shape. I chose a diamond, they're roughly symmetrical, and they value spiky, detailed forms over legibility. I included thorns as a design motif, mostly because of the lead singer Thorn. She is my favorite Hex Girl, as I imagine is most people's favorite Hex Girl. Velma has this book of like occult research that she secretly writes notes in. If she's making observations on the go, I think she uses this like tiny little notebook and her favorite chewed up pen, or she takes notes on her phone. The case on her phone is practically bulletproof. It is so heavy duty. She is not nice to that thing. If it meant finding a clue, she'd chuck that thing across the room. She's also got a flower, a Star of David, and a tumbler charm on the end. And here's the final design. I really like how she turned out. She did stray a lot from her original design, but honestly, I don't mind that at all because like, I feel like their character designs haven't changed one bit in like 50 years. I think the most they changed, at least in the costume department, was that was 2000s, right? The live action movies. The popular ones, not the one with Velma turning into a were-frog. And now we're on to Daphne. This lady is a businesswoman girl boss. I kind of imagine that she's the type of person to unironically say the phrase, "Gaslight gatekeep girl boss." She single-handedly keeps the Mystery Inc. out of bankruptcy while they're just getting started. As a foil to Velma, Daphne has very good social skills, and she has a knack for immediately getting people to be comfortable with her so that they'll spill all the tea without even realizing it. While Freddy loves talking with people just to make friends, and Velma eavesdrops for information, Daphne gets close to people to further her goals. And this is not a girl that you want to cross because she can be a bit of a wild card when she's upset. Quite the heavy hitter too, she's deadly in those heels. You ever seen someone sprint at you full speed in stilettos? If you piss her off, you're about to. Now that I think about it, I think she does ballet as a hobby and then uses it as strength training. She's got buff dancer legs. Daphne's in a power couple relationship with Freddy. Freddy is ace, and Daphne is a wait for marriage type of gal anyway, so they're very lovey-dovey and gooey without needing lust to keep their relationship afloat. They're the healthiest couple you will ever see. Okay, onto the design. My girl Daphne Blake is a pear-shaped girly. She got hips for days. She's also the tallest in the group, and I gave her disproportionately long legs. Shaggy is the second tallest. That boy's definitely a skinny little beanpole. Other than Velma, I think my Daphne strayed the most from her original design. She is black in this version, even though I know some people have big feelings about race bending. And honestly, I don't care about any of the other things people say about woke casting, ooh, so scary. Here's the real reason you should have diverse characters in your story. On a character design level, it's just more interesting. Like, I'm partially face blind, so if every character has the same skin tone, hair color, or body type, I'm not going to be able to tell them apart, and neither will a lot of your audience. The more different you can make your characters, whether it be looks, personality, or social background, the more engaging and fun your story will be. Opposites attract and all that. It's really fun to bounce two very different characters off of each other. So, I was on a trip recording the speed paints with my family. So if you see me draw the same line over and over and over and over again, it's probably because I was in a car at the time. My mom was watching me design Daphne for a while, and when she learned that my Daphne was black, she naturally, being who she is, she pulls out the, "What, are you gonna make Scooby a Pomeranian?" No, Mom, I have special plans for Scooby, and it doesn't have anything to do with his species. He's just unique. Anyway, regardless of a character's skin tone, as long as the color palette still feels like the character, then that's kind of all I care about. I did a little tweaking to the palette, especially her hair, since I think Daphne's usual color kind of clashes a little with her outfit. I leaned it just a tad more pink. I'm still not happy with the color, but at least it still mostly feels like her. I did have a lot of fun with the hairstyle though, although I couldn't really think of very many. I tried some updo, some down. Without expecting it though, I totally fell in love with the space buns. I just think they're so stinking adorable. But I did also give her an option where her hair's down in locks because I think they're really pretty. And also the locks version kind of feels more like her. The space buns are super cute, but they don't necessarily feel like Daphne, you know? Part of that is because they've kept her looking the exact same for 50 years, but you know. As for the fashion, she's got her business attire on. My girl's got the stiletto heels that can kill, and they also have a little bit of ballerina-esque flair to them. When I was making a fashion mood board for her, I fell in love with the idea of a top with see-through bishop sleeves and a bow on the collar. I tried stripes on the shirt, but I wasn't really feeling it. And just in case, I also tried a peplum top. That's a shirt that flares out at the bottom, kind of like a mermaid skirt, but I didn't like that either. I also tried layering on a blazer, and I wasn't feeling that either. So I guess I nailed it first try, but you know. With the accessories, I realized that she would look great in pearls, so I gave her pearl earrings and also a pearl belt to go with it. I also tried a shield knot necklace and I think a neck scarf, but it felt out of place. Let's talk about her bag for a sec. Daphne has been mentioned to have Scottish ancestry over the years, and so I'm keeping that here. This is a Scottish Sporran bag that she got from her grandma. I like to think that this bag is from like the 1940s or 50s. I just know that Daphne somehow managed to fit a whole brick in there. Everything can be used as a weapon. The pattern on her bag and skirt are tartan, or tartan if you're using my accent, and it's the pattern that the Blake family uses in my Scoobyverse. There is a real-life Blake clan that has their own tartan pattern, but obviously I didn't use it because of copyright and cultural appropriation, and also because it was the wrong colors, but you know. On her purse is something called the Celtic Shield Knot. I think it's fitting because that knot symbolizes protection from evil, and Daphne is sort of the bodyguard of the group. Last up is her glasses. They're blue because Freddie gave them to her as a gift when they first started dating. They were originally going to be sunglasses on top of her head, but now they're fashion frames with the lenses popped out. And there's Daphne. As you can probably tell, I was inspired by the live-action Daphne. It was a genius choice to cast Buffy the Vampire Slayer as Daphne's actress. The scene where she breaks out of a trap using makeup is so cool.
Freddie.
Fred is a himbo. Of course he's a himbo. HBO's Velma show learned that the hard way. If he runs away from being a himbo, he'll go all the way around the world and loop right back into becoming a himbo. It is inevitable. Freddie looks like a jock, mainly because he is one. He's incredibly jacked because he likes working out and playing football. Because he's so buff, people are often intimidated by him, but really, he's just a huge nerd with a passion for mechanics. Like Velma, Fred frequently goes down rabbit holes to learn random information. But unlike Velma, his interests are all physical. Velma tells Freddy what is needed to catch the bad guy, Shaggy provides the creativity, and Freddy makes the trap and executes the plan. And Daphne and Scooby are there to take out the target if the trap fails. Freddy is great at making friends at the cost of being a little bit gullible. Fred always makes a special effort to include everyone. No one gets left behind or left out, especially Velma, who always seems to want to pull away for some reason. I can see him listening to classical music in the Mystery Machine, much to everyone else's dismay. Fred usually holds the aux chord hostage because no one can really agree on a music genre they all like. Everyone except Daphne finds Velma's black metal to be too extreme, and Shaggy's ska music makes people complain more than Freddy's music. And don't even get me started on Scooby, who's been caught once or twice listening to ambient horror music. Says it feels like home, aka feels like home, whatever that means. But Scooby also just goes along with whatever Shaggy wants. So Freddy made an executive decision, and the classical music is here to stay. And now we're on to Freddy's design. This part might be kind of short because I immediately knew how he'd look. Given that he's a preppy football jock, I wanted him in a jean Letterman jacket, a white t-shirt, and oil-stained blue jeans. The one thing I experimented with was his shoes. I considered giving him Chucks or retro-looking tennis shoes, but I ended up liking the work boots more. I also kept his ascot/necktie, obviously. I just changed it to purple because Daphne gave it to him. The fuzzy patches on the Letterman are my favorite part of his design. The first one is a Coolsville High School patch that came with the jacket. We also have a wrench, a heart with the asexual flag on it, and the guy from Star Wars that says, "It's a trap!" When I thought of that patch, I was like, I'm a genius. Not only would he be a Star Wars fan, but he's also a fan of traps. Would he like trap music, though? Maybe just for hanging out with the football boys. I don't know. He really does seem like a classical guy. Now, classical trap music, that would be interesting. Okay, moving on. The last pin is a flower with a smiley face on it. Each color represents a member of the gang. Yellow for Velma, green for Shaggy, blue for himself, purple for Daphne, and brown for Scooby. He's also got the purple neck scarf, the leather of his boots are Shaggy and Scoob's brown color, and the soles are Velma's brown. So he has everyone's colors in his color design, not only once, but twice over. This idea is actually inspired by the original cartoon. You can see Fred has the same color shoes as Scooby, and Fred and Daphne's scarves match Shaggy and Velma's colors respectively. In my version, I used that idea to show character affiliations. Daphne and Fred are linked, Shag and Scoob are too. And as I mentioned before, Velma has no one's colors on her. Fred, being the pure little himbo that he is, just wants all of his friends to be a part of him, hence the happy flower. Originally, Fred was going to be one of the tallest members of the gang, if not the tallest. He was going to be kind of like a jolly blue giant. But then a little part of my brain was like, but what if he was short? So now he's a short king. He is now the Shane Top of the group. Honestly, that tracks like really well. Here's Freddy. He is my baby boy, my pride and joy. I love my beautiful little himbo so much. And now we're on to Shaggy. When you first meet Shaggy, he might be perfectly calm and laid back. You might not even notice that anything's different about him. But the moment the paranormal is brought up, he switches right back to his usual jittery self. Shaggy has a couple different anxiety disorders. He's practically 70% anxiety at this point, and he would be barely functional if it weren't for his trained therapy dog, Scooby-Doo. He loves Scooby, and Scooby loves him, even if Scooby is a little quirky. When he's not freaked out, Shaggy can have quite the goofy streak. If he's 70% anxiety, Goofball is the other 30%. Scooby often matches his energy during these times. Shaggy's a creative thinker who loves playing harmless pranks on others. He's always got a neon green whoopee cushion or a dozen origami cats hiding somewhere in the Mystery Inc. office. And he's always got snacks in his ratty old backpack in case anyone needs them. Especially for Fred, who forgets to eat if he gets too excited. In his free time, Shaggy and Scooby like to chow down on vegetarian snacks, watch crappy B-movies, and complain about how unrealistic they are. But when it comes to actual investigations, Shaggy feels like he can't really do much. He's a natural when it comes to guard duty, because he can always tell when something's off. Sometimes it pays to be hyper-vigilant. But despite the gang constantly reminding him that he's braver than he thinks, Shaggy is often frustrated by the way fear paralyzes him. Thankfully, Shaggy's fun-loving nature also comes in handy during investigations. With the help of Scooby, he can finally find the fun in all the wacky situations they get into. His best pranks happen when he's messing with the masked weirdos that plague Coolsville. He's also got a great sense of humor and impresses the gang with his sharp wit and jokes that never miss their mark. Moving on to his design. I tried several different clothing options for Shaggy. I wasn't sure what to do with the shirt, so I tried fringed and frayed hems, a really baggy fit, mid-sized fit, a bunch of patterns like tie-dye, floral, or plain, and so on. In the end, I went with a messily tucked-in shirt that's loose but not super baggy. Naturally, I landed on the tie-dye shirt. I've never rendered tie-dye before, so it was kind of a pain to figure out, but it really suits him. He's always had a 70s hippie influence to him. As for the pants, I gave him corduroy jeans with a wide leg fit. There's also some patches on there to fit the more casual hippie type vibe. I did briefly try skinny jeans, but I don't know what I was thinking there. I also gave him a checkered belt and checkered tennis shoes with undone laces. In Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, Shaggy was into ska music despite being tone deaf. The checker pattern is a common motif for ska enthusiasts, as it became a symbol in the British mod era for black and white racial solidarity. His final design doesn't show it, but I like to think that he wears weed socks. I can imagine Shaggy saying, like, guys, I'm wearing them ironically, I swear. I can't do a Shaggy voice to save my life. But for real though, it's 2025. I think the stoner subtext is just text by now. He probably has a stash of edibles for when the panic attacks get real bad. Also, because I'm a teacher and therefore a role model to children, I do feel it's important to note, my Shaggy doesn't smoke, but obviously, smoking is bad for you, and so is anything that causes addiction. Do not give up any of your power. Smoking is also incredibly cringy, and that includes vaping. Anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is cringy themselves. Anyway, in his backpack, Shaggy's got Scooby snacks, a poppet ball, and fidget spinner. Yes, he is a fidget spinner guy, unironically. Granola bars, and on the outside, he's got an aromantic asexual pronouns pin on the outside. Shaggy Rogers, my Aero Ace King. Here he is. Okay, I am really excited about this one because I have big plans for Scooby-Doo. We're going to switch things up a little bit here and put his design notes first. That's because when it comes to his, physical body, there's not really much to talk about. He's got a shaggy green harness with checkered accents, his classic Scooby-Doo collar that I forgot to draw for most of the video, and that's about it. There's a handle on the harness that Shaggy can hold when he needs it, but Scoop doesn't need a leash because he is a very well-trained dog. I mean, he is also, sentient and thus isn't in any danger of, randomly running off to chase squirrels, unless it's for the bit. By the way, if you can't tell, the harness says, "Therapy dog, do not touch." I ended up tweaking Scooby's coat color and pattern a lot. I don't know when that part will show up in the video, but you're gonna have a fun time trying to follow that. It's gonna change at least 4 times. I lightened it significantly until it felt more like Scooby, and I also eventually gave him a couple darker splotches since the original Scooby is also dual colored. It also took a minute trying to figure out the splotches. You can tell that I don't have experience drawing dogs. Scooby's a little uncanny looking, and honestly, I don't mind that. Scooby's always kind of defied the laws of physics a little bit. Anyway, there's really only one thing that visually sets Scooby apart from other Great Danes. To me, Scoob feels like the type of dog where you look at him, he looks at you, and you go, "Oh, that dog has human eyes." Because his eyes are green. Not brown, not black, bright green. Now, there is an in-story reason for why Scooby wears a collar if he already has a harness. As long as the gang can remember, Shaggy and Scooby have always been an inseparable pair, so they don't question it when Shaggy says Scooby can talk because of the collar. Shag did have to tell Fred, no, you cannot take the collar apart to see how such an amazing piece of technology would work, but otherwise they don't question the fact that Scoop can talk. And now we're on to his personality. Scoobert Doobert Doo Rogers III is kind of a wild card when it comes to his personality, but Scooby's very good at his job. He plays whatever role Shaggy needs him to play. When Shaggy's in a panic attack, Scooby is his comforter. He knows all the little tricks to keep Shaggy grounded. When Shaggy feels insecure about his anxiety, Scooby acts scared too. He shakes and shivers and leaps into Shaggy's arms like a little baby. It also works as deep pressure therapy. But when Shaggy is feeling chaotic, like he wants to pull off the prank of the century, Scooby feeds off that chaotic energy. It's times like these where, well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Aside from a couple minor slip-ups, Scooby-Doo is a very sweet boy. Very good at making puppy dog eyes and drooling over everything, so he looks very unassuming. However, the nosier members of Coolsville are catching on to Scooby's more interesting quirks. When Mystery Inc. thinks they're alone, Scooby starts talking. Because, oh yeah, he can talk. He can talk. You just heard him talk. How? You try to brush it off as just another caffeine hallucination, but then you notice that he's got these oddly human-looking eyes, and he can understand human language to an almost uncanny level, and he just stopped talking. He's noticed you now. Your heart shudders in your chest, but he just wanders over to you with his big old puppy dog eyes drooling all the way, and then he gives a little whine, lolling his head adorably, and you scratch him right behind the ears just the way he likes it. And what were you just thinking about? Now, as you might have guessed, something's up with Scooby-Doo, so I'll let you in on a little secret. It's something that not even Mystery Inc. knows. The entity known as Scooby-Doo is usually happy to play the part of a doofy dog, but he's actually an interdimensional spirit trapped in the body of a Great Dane. He can usually keep up appearances pretty well, but sometimes he gets a little bored of the flesh sack he resides in and starts longing for chaos and control again. So when another creep in a crappy costume gets a little too close to Shaggy, well, suddenly all they can see is a very large dog with human eyes, judging the contents of their soul. It doesn't need to speak a word to them, but the message is clear. This human is mine. If you take one more shambling step forward, well... Are you ready to learn true fear? That is to say, despite Scooby's living situation, he loves Shaggy more than anything. The rest of the world can burn, but Scooby-Doo and Shaggy Rogers will always be an inseparable pair. Surprise! We're talking about his visual design again! What you're seeing here is my favorite part of the whole video. Oh my gosh. I really gotta do more non-human designs because this was a blast. There were a few motifs I experimented with in these sketches. The clown one didn't go very far, but the puppeteer marionette idea was there the whole way through. That's actually part of why I started nicknaming this entity the puppeteer, because I can't resist a good portmanteau. The general shape was the same. 4 arms, a long tail that loops around the dog and connects to its chest, a head, a torso, but I played around a lot with the head shapes, poses, and facial features. Usually the more character designs I try, the better they get, but that was actually kind of the opposite here. Near the end, I tried one that was like Argus, covered in creepy eyes. I also tried a version where the puppeteer is directly mimicking the dog's pose, but that looked really, really dumb. And I also tried making him look like the synapses and neuron of a brain. That would be fun for a different character, but not for Scooby. I did come across another motif near the end though, and that is the scarecrow. I realized later why it fits so well. My Scooby is kind of a scarecrow. He's pretending to be something he's not, in order to protect something, or someone, valuable. And on the inside, all that's left is empty fluff. Because Scooby is not the dog. Not really. Scooby is the spirit, the entity, the whisper of a breeze that pulls strings, compresses vocal cords in rough approximations of speech, gazes at you with oddly sentient eyes. And so, the final design was born. I combined my favorite pose of the bunch with the scarecrow puppeteer idea, complete with stitching for the mouth and sides, and vibrant green strings held in clawed fingers. I had to decide between a few different shapes for the eyes, including having no facial features at all. That was very unsettling, but it didn't seem to fit my final design. But in the final design, I think the fact that the eyes are looking right at you adds to the creep factor. I imagine that some people might be upset with me giving Scooby a bit of a darker edge, but in my defense, I couldn't help it. Once you start thinking about why he can talk, it's really hard to find a non-supernatural way of explaining it. Plus, I think it's fun to have the Scooby Gang chase cryptids, not realizing that the true cryptid has been right under their noses the whole time. He is still a good boy though, just a little bit chaotic. And here's the full main cast of Scooby-Doo. I've adored this franchise ever since I was a kid. I love that the original shows were critical of corporate greed and that it gave teens a chance to be themselves. The creative monster designs still fascinate me, and of course, so does the Scooby Gang. This franchise is iconic for a reason, so I wanted to honor it in my own way. Speaking of which, if I met my own deadline, this video should be coming out September 13th, aka National Scooby-Doo Day. That's the day the original Scooby-Doo Where Are You cartoon first started airing. I grew up watching that show on DVD, so September 13th is now special for me. Not to be like Brennan from Dropout begging to talk about birds, but please let me know if you want more Scoobyverse stuff. I'm thinking of reimagining the Hex Girls, the Ghoul School, or maybe even making my own Scooby-Doo villain OC? Let me know what y'all think down below. Thank you so much for watching, and happy National Scooby-Doo Day. Bye! I included thorns as a design motif, mostly because of the lead thing is thorn. Velma has this book of occult research. Velma has this like book of occult research that she turning into old man Wickles. Hello, I'm recording a video, so
It's gonna crap on me.
it keeps sounding like there's people in my apartment. Maybe it's the clown. My roommates brought home this clown, and it has like angry energy. Right now we have it faced so it's looking out the window. I keep thinking it's gonna move. It hasn't yet, unless my roommates move it, obviously. So it's just like a Halloween elf on the shelf right now. I find it in new and interesting positions every day. I can't do a Shaggy voice to save my life. Although, considering how much my pitch naturally fluctuates, part of me wonders if I already have a Shaggy voice. Because it goes up, down, and pitch a whole lot. Anyway. The creative monster. Mama, there's a monster under my bed. Horrible, okay. It's horrible. You're horrible. You're an irredeemable monster. Okay, get to the point, man. Okay, because his eyes. Okay. As you can tell, I'm starting to lose it. He shakes and shivers. Shiver me timvers. It was bad even for my standards. Are you ready to learn true fear? Ooh, that's okay. We are not doing the ASMR. But please! Gosh, okay. Yeah! Freedom! No more recording for me! Anyway, bye! For real this time.